Hey guys, welcome back. So one of the more popular videos on my channel is about how to be happy and alone. And so it's been on my mind for a while now to do a part 2 that's specifically about how to be single and happy. I've thought long and hard about whether I should film this because it's always very vulnerable and scary to put your personal life and previous heartbreaks and relationships online. But it seemed like my previous video really helped you guys out, and so I'm going to be sharing the general takeaways that I had from my previous relationship and how it really helped me to overcome heartbreak and just enjoy being on my own. I did not date. I was very focused on studying in school all the way up to college, and I only got my first boyfriend when I was 18, this freshman year of college. It happened really quickly. We met and got together within the span of 1 month, but unfortunately 7 months later we broke up because of fundamental differences that we weren't able to reconcile. I think because it happened so quickly, I didn't really have the time to get to know him as a person and figure out whether we were compatible as a couple. And even though it was only a 7th-month relationship, I think I felt quite sad and heartbroken because I think we were both in it for the long haul. But yeah, I mean, you learn and you grow from all the experiences that you go through, and there are 7 tips specifically that came out of this experience that I would love to share with y'all that really helped me overcome heartbreak and learn how to be happy on my own. So first of all, I think being single and alone is such a blessing because learning to be alone is vital for a healthy and a flourishing relationship. I think a lot of people are looking for relationships because they're looking to fulfill something within them. They're looking to someone else to give them love and comfort and support and validation. And this is especially, at least in my experience, for people who grew up from family backgrounds or childhoods where they didn't feel like they were sufficiently loved. In many instances, relationships, especially a romantic one, is supposed to give you those things. Your partner is supposed to be a pillar of support, give you love and affection. But I think the problem comes when we rely on them to give us all those things, when we should be able to find happiness and satisfaction from just being on our own, being by ourselves. Even when you are in a relationship, it's so important to have space, to cultivate other relationships outside your romantic one, to pursue your own passions, to be your own person. And when you are someone who is dependent on someone else for love and affection, then they can become clingy in a way that is stifling for the other person. And this can be unpleasant at best, but toxic at worst. And also I think it means that you're less able as a person to set boundaries. If someone is desperate for a relationship, they're going to let any person be their partner instead of holding a potential partner to a certain standard and only getting into a relationship if it's the right one for them. So I read a quote from a book recently that really sums up this point, and I'm going to share it with you guys and ask yourself whether you are someone who feels this way. Some people are afraid to be alone. They are afraid of themselves. They are afraid of their thoughts, their feelings, their anger, their grief, their confusion. They want to stay at the surface, looking outward, always stimulated, their mind always preoccupied. They do not know how to be with themselves. But if you are a stranger to yourself, how can you relate to anyone else in a real way? You will be a stranger to them as well. And this leads me to my next point, which is being single helps you to cultivate a sense of self, which is so important to keep a relationship healthy. In a long-term relationship, sometimes your lives start blending together. You know, you form your own routines, you start having common hobbies, you do things together. But if you don't have a strong sense of self, the problem is that sometimes you start to bend too much to your partner's will. You start to slowly stop doing the things that you used to do for yourself and by yourself, the things that your partner might not be so interested in doing. You start to give in more to what your partner wants. And only after I got out of my past relationship, I realized that this is what I was doing. I started to compromise on the things that I knew made me happy. I did less yoga, I was less active, I didn't go out as much to participate in fun events or performances around campus because I was giving up my time to spend with him. And this is not my ex's fault. I'm not blaming him for this. This was actually my fault for not holding myself accountable to taking care of myself, doing the things that I knew would bring me joy. And that's why it's so important when you are single to cultivate routines, to cultivate habits, to identify your values and live them out in your life. And make sure that you have a strong foundation when you enter into a relationship. And having a strong sense of self is not only good for you, but it also makes you seem more attractive to someone else. No one falls in love with a person who is exactly like themselves, unless you are a narcissist. Your future partner will fall in love with you for your unique characteristics, for the person that you are. And so you don't want to lose those things when you become attached, when you enter a relationship. This is exactly what Esther Perel talks about on her TED Talk about desire. She says that one of the things that stimulates desire for your partner in a long-term relationship is seeing your partner at a comfortable distance away from you, in their element, doing whatever they're passionate about. Because when this happens, they see that their partner doesn't need them and they appear radiant and self-sustaining on their own. And that is what Esther Perel says creates desire, this distance, this seeing someone who used to be so familiar as mysterious yet again. So basically, this period of being single is so good for you to learn to be your own person, which is not only something beneficial for you, but also your future relationship. The third realization I had is that it isn't always realistic for your romantic partner to be everything. This is something that Esther Perel also says in her talk. She says, we come to one person and we ask them to provide what an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging, give me identity, give me a family, but give me transcendence and mystery and all in one. We go to one person and not only expect them to be our partner for life, but also our best friend, our trusted confidant, and our passionate lover to boot. And whilst I think it's entirely possible to have a relationship where you have all of these elements, it's also important to remember that there are other people in our lives who also care for us and love us and can also be pillars of support for us in their own ways. We cannot forget that we have parents, we have friends, we have pets, and even ourselves to fill us up, to fulfill the need for connection. And if not, we can always build our own community and tribe. In fact, our relationships with these people is often just as, if not even more important than our relationship with our partners, because usually these are the people who are there beside us as we fall in and out of love until we meet the right person. They are usually the people who will be there to comfort you and see you through it all. The next realization I had is to become the person that you want to date. In the period I was recovering from my breakup, I spent a lot of time just reflecting and journaling about what went wrong. And outside of that emotional roller coaster that was my relationship, I could really have a much more objective perspective on what could have been improved upon. Me and my ex certainly had some fundamental differences that we weren't able to reconcile, like frequency of communication and the way that we dealt with conflict. But I also realized that there were things that I personally could have improved upon as well. And so I took it upon myself to, in this period of singlehood, really learn about things like love languages, like attachment styles, like how to deal with conflict smoothly and how to communicate better. All these things that I expected of a partner, I realized I needed to have myself. And so I spent this period of being single just learning about relationships, learning how to be a better lover, a better partner, a better friend. I knew that if I wanted to find a stable and emotionally intelligent partner, I had to be one myself. And so just see this time of being single as the perfect time to do that, to learn about these skills that it takes to be a good partner and bring them into your future relationships. So the next thing I realized is super important, which is that love exists in so much more than a romantic partner. It exists all around us and within us. That summer that I broke up with my ex, I was interning in California and I was living in a house in the middle of the woods. I was surrounded by nature, doing meaningful work and making friends with the other interns that I was working with. I look back at that time in my life so fondly, even though I had to deal with some sadness and grief, because I filled my life with experiences that filled me with joy and gratitude every single day. And as my love for life expanded, so did my desire to see more, to do more. And when I returned to school for my second year, I spent so much time just investing in new experiences, in learning a new language, in traveling solo, in just exploring campus more and attending more plays and performances. And I was so much more fulfilled in my second year than in my first year. And I'm not saying that that's because I didn't have a relationship, but it was because I was investing time in myself. So I realized that there's so much more to life than a romantic partner. I told myself that the right person will come along when the time is right. But you can bet that I'm going to be spending my time having fun. And a lot of the times, that's how people meet their significant others anyway. So screw society or your family's expectations and what they tell you about when you should be falling in love. You run your own race. And if that means you fall in love at 15 or 35 or 65 or never if you don't want to, you do you. And while you're at it, ignore all the timelines of your peers. I know social media sometimes shows us a lot of pictures of happy couples, of our friends getting into relationships, getting married, getting kids before us. But through the screen, through social media, we often don't get the full picture. There are many people in relationships, but there are fewer people in long-term, healthy and stable relationships. So just have patience, and the right relationship will come when the time is right. It's always better to find the right person and get into a relationship at the right time than rush into one that isn't right for you. And finally, let go of your fear of being alone forever. I know how you feel, and even if you don't constantly worry about it, the nagging question of when you're going to meet the right person can sometimes feel very consuming. But every time the thought entered my mind, I just reminded myself that there are billions of people in the world, and at the very least, a couple of thousand in my near vicinity. I just focused on working on myself, living every day with gratitude, and living every day to the fullest, as cliched it might sound. And I knew, as I said a billion times already, that the right person would come into my life when the time is right. And of course, there are many ways in which you can put yourself out there more, you can meet new people, but I also think it's important to remember that we should never chase a relationship from a place of scarcity, of lack, of desperation, because that means that we will lower our standards just so that we can be in a relationship, and we don't want that. So focus on loving yourself first, because that is the only way in which we can learn to love someone in an unconditional way and from a place of abundance and genuine love. It also really took me a fair amount of time to really process and absorb everything. So give yourself time and be patient with yourself as you go through any emotions that you are going through right now. It was only 3 years later that I got into a relationship, and now I'm in a very healthy and stable relationship that was really built on the foundation of everything that I shared with you all today. We actually met online, so that's a very interesting story time that I'll be happy to share with y'all if you're interested in the life lessons I learned from online dating. Online dating was a wild ride and I really enjoyed it. So happy to share those experiences with you guys too. But anyway, I really hope that this video was helpful for you guys. And with that, I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.